This lesson is part of Gibson's Learn and Master Guitar course. Before you get started, download the free lesson book at the following web address. Now, here's Gibson's Learn and Master Guitar author, Steve Krenz.
Hi, and welcome to session 18. This is one of my favorite sessions in all of this whole course. Let's look at what we're going to cover today. Today we're going to talk about jazz guitar playing, as well as we're going to learn about a typical jazz format of chord melody and how to solo using chord melody, a little bit about that. We're going to talk about how to jazz up chord progressions, taking your normal chord progressions, giving them that jazzy sound, that jazzy flair. In the process of that, we're going to learn several new chord forms, major and minor seventh chord forms. I'm going to give you some ninth chord forms as well. And then in our How Music Works section, we're going to be our last gasp of music theory in ninths, elevenths, and thirteenths. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get started. You know, jazz guitar playing is such a great and creative way to add some dimension and depth into your playing, into your sound. So many different things can happen with jazz harmonically in the music, rather than just going beyond the normal C, G, and D chords that everybody plays. You throw in some jazz chords, and it really adds some depth to your playing. All right, let's talk about jazz guitars for a second. I'm playing on a Gibson 335, ES 335 right here. Very common guitar. You can do a lot of different styles with this instrument. You can do country stuff, you can do jazz stuff. It's a very functional guitar with that. You can get a lot of range on that. Now, but it works great for jazz. I've played so much jazz on this instrument as well. I love the Gibson 335. There's also a Gibson 175, which is a larger, it's a thicker bodied guitar. This one actually, if we can get a shot of that, is not really that thick. It's about as thick as maybe a Les Paul would be. 175, those big arch tops, are going to be a thicker guitar, probably 3 or 4 inches thick. They also have, let's see, an L4 and an L5. Those are great jazz instruments as well, those big arch top jazz guitars. Now, when I'm thinking jazz, let's talk about tone for a minute, because you want these, part of these instruments is they give you this rounder jazz tone. So let's talk about tone for a minute. When I'm playing jazz guitar, I don't want my pickup on this bridge pickup way down here. That gets this kind of harsher sound for more country stuff, more lead stuff. I want to put it up to this bridge pickup, as warm as it can get. Very warm sound. This has these 2 humbucking pickups. Generally with jazz instruments, you get these humbucking pickups. They're a little bit larger, a little bit louder, but they get a fuller sound as well. Now, while we're talking about tone, a lot of times what I will do, if I'm playing through an amp, I will go and I'll roll off some of the highs on the amp, and I'll beef up the bass a little bit on the amp, kind of give a little bit warmer, fatter tone. Sometimes I'll go over here to my tone knob right here. Here's volume, here's tone. When I'm down at this pickup switch level, we have volume and tone right there, but I'm up here at the bridge pickup, volume and tone, and I'll just roll that tone back just a little bit to take the edge off of the sound. That helps to take a little bit of that sharpness out of the sound. That's part of getting that jazz tone. Just takes the edge off. You don't want it real harsh as it is in rock playing. So that's some good secrets to giving you a little bit of a jazz tone on your instrument. Also, the type of pick is helpful as well. For jazz, I use a couple of different picks. Here is it's called a stubby pick, actually by Jim Dunlop. It's, I think, 3 millimeters, thick, very thick pick, and a little purple little pick, but it's got rounded edges, and so, again, it's all for the smoother, rounder tone that we're looking for. It's a little bit better than a more flexible pick. I like the thicker picks for jazz stuff. Let me show you a couple other picks that I use a lot for jazz stuff. This is another one, smaller triangular pick. Get it there where you can see it. And it is 1 millimeter. So again, these are very thick picks. There's not much give in them. But I like, this one has a little bit more definition because it's got a sharper edge on the bottom of it, so I can get a little bit more definition with it, but it's not as sharp or as pointed as it would be on a regular standard pick. Let me show you two more. This one is actually, if we can get a shot of that, this one is actually a mandolin pick. And what I love about this one is that there are no sharp edges on it at all. It's just, I don't know whether you can see that, it's just a very round, smooth edge. So when I play with this one, I get this real soft tone with it. In contrast, let me play this one that has a sharper edge on it, the one that I just showed you. It gets a little bit more of a sharper, more definite tone. This one I like because it's more muted. All right, let me show you one more. This one is a big old thumb pick. Now, for years, I played with a thumb pick and just thumb and these three fingers as I'm doing jazz stuff. So I can do single note stuff when I want to. But when I want to do chords, I can use it. In conjunction with my other fingers. All right, that's a little bit about picks. Chord melodies. This is one of the things that is used a lot in jazz chord playing. So what do I mean by chord melodies? Well, here's the idea. You have your melody, your single note melody on top. And then I'm going to try and squeeze in all of the other chord tones for the appropriate chords that are coming by underneath that chord melody. So let me show you first what I'm talking about. Take a look at that first example in your book. This would be chord melody example number 1. Now in the first couple of bars, I have a simple little melody. Very common little melody. And the chords above that would basically just be maybe a C major 7th. You'll notice as I'm playing this jazz stuff that I switch to swing phrasing. Let me just talk to you about swing phrasing just for a second. In eighth notes, we have been talking about eighth notes as pure eighths, dot, 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 dot. In jazz, eighths are interpreted more as triplets, kind of a broken triplet. Da, 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 da. So you'll notice if I played that melody straight, not in jazz, it would sound like this. But when I add a little bit of jazz to it, it gets a little bit more swing to it. Da, 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 da. As I'm doing jazz, you interpret things with those swing eighth notes. All right, so that's the initial melody. When I'm doing a chord melody with it, I'm going to add some chords underneath. Here's that melody tone. Underneath that melody. So now I have this whole jazzy sounding thing. Well, how do you know what to play? Well, it's a C major 7th. Then I just kind of make a whole lot of decisions here. It goes back a half step, so I just did a B major 7th underneath it. Back up to the C major 7. Then it goes up to here to this G. Well, I could just put the G in my form. That's one way to do it, but I kind of snuck up here and slipped a quick E minor 7th into the chord change. Add a little bit of slides, a little bit of swing to it, and I'm able to get a little chord melody out of it. Adds a little bit of texture underneath it. Makes it a little bit more creative. Take a look at the second example, chord melody example 2. Just the normal melody is going to sound like this. I'll play it one more time. Now, if I wanted to play that with my chord melody, There I went from, let's say, a C chord to basically an F chord. I have my C major 7th form, then I have my F major 7th form, and then I played it. I'm just playing these various notes in these forms. You'll notice that each form in jazz, I can look around and say, where are my melody notes? What could I make as a melody note? Well, I could use this B, this E, or this G. Maybe I could even add an A. I can use the D. I can get all kinds of melody notes out of this one chord. By just moving my fingers around. I don't think I can quite get to that B. And that's part of chord melody. You learn how to do all of that, all of those sorts of things. You just want to make sure that when you're adding chords to the notes, that when you're adding these chords, they come appropriately when the chord comes in the song. And sometimes you have to kind of play around with the fingering of the chord. So like this C major 7th, I can go down to the G, but I can also go to the E, just like I was talking about. So I just use it where I need it, and I don't have to go all the way through the chord. That's a little bit about chord melody. Let's look at the next thing.